There's the sound. The big day is finally here. After so much planning and analysis, Springer, the orphaned orca, is headed home.
It appears it is finally happening. Over the next 2 hours, we will get to see the final preparations as Springer is loaded onto the boat that will take her back to the north end of Vancouver Island. King 5's Pat McReynolds is live in Manchester. That's where Springer has been a guest, fattening up and getting healthy for the past month. Pat, what do things look like over there?
Well, Alan, by all indications, she had a pretty good stay. She ate well. She's gained about 100 pounds. She's healthy and in good spirits, as you mentioned. Of course, her world is about to dramatically change in the next hour. And scientists are going to hopefully keep her stress level at a minimum during the arduous 10-hour journey home. While there is definite excitement at the possibility of reuniting this baby orphaned orca with her family, the procedures to do so are very complicated and in many cases have never been tried before. Still, rescuers remain very confident.
We're pretty prepared, and we have contingency plans if things do go awry, but everything right now is falling into place and looking really, really good.
The first phase of Springer's homecoming will look very similar to her first capture several weeks ago. A large net under the tank will be lifted, limiting Springer's space and guiding her into a sling. She will then be placed in a special tank and monitored very closely. Biologists will pay special attention to her breathing, which hopefully will stay at about 8 to 10 breaths every 5 minutes.
We want her to lay relaxed, and we can tell if she's relaxed or not. There'll be people monitoring that and keeping the top side of her wet.
This high-speed catamaran should deliver Springer to her new pen within 10 to 12 hours. At that point, it will be the young orca's decision when to be set free.
If we see that activity level change, and if she gets excited or challenge the net in any way, then we know that she's wanting to go. So drop the nets down and try to release her at that time.
Now we anxiously await the arrival of the high-speed catamaran. We understand that it has left, although it started out a little bit slower than expected. It's trying to knock off some of the debris on the bottom of the boat, but it should be here pretty quickly. And if things go as planned, Springer should be well on her way by 7 a.m. this morning. Reporting live in Manchester, Pat McReynolds, King 5 News.
And Pat, this catamaran is no bad ride, as we've been saying. This is a great ride for Springer, and we'll have that continuing this morning. If you'd like even more information on Springer's adventure, you can log on to king5.com. There you can find a complete schedule along with maps of the route and plenty of video as well. If today's move is considered a success, Canadian officials say they might consider doing the same to another displaced orca.
And right next to our boat is a killer whale.
This amazing home video was taken by some Bellingham fishermen. It shows their encounter with L98, nicknamed Luna. He, too, is separated from his pod. He should be in our area in U.S. waters, but he is now living on the west side of Vancouver Island in Nootka Sound.
I mean, we just watched the video, and it still gives me chills to watch the video. I mean, it's hard to believe we actually did it, and it's hard to look at us and say, well, that's us touching a wild killer whale.
The Canadian government is taking a hands-off approach for now. L98 appears to be healthy, and there is hope that his own pod will come by and pick him up later this fall. That's the net pen in Manchester, Clam Bay. That is where Springer, the orca, has been hanging out for the last couple of weeks, fattening up on salmon and getting her final medical checks, which apparently come out very well. She's doing well and will be moving out today. We, of course, will be following along as she gets hoisted up out of the water, put on board a high-speed catamaran, and shipped north.
That's right.
Long trip, 300 miles or so, maybe a little bit more, up
10 to 12 hours. She should get there at the earliest this afternoon, about 3 o'clock, but more likely 5 or 6 o'clock tonight.
In the heat of the day.
Yeah.
Well, apparently they sluice salt water through her little holding tank, so she's getting fresh water, cooling her off constantly.
Thank goodness.
The technology's amazing.
Yeah, and that catamaran is supposed to be a really smooth ride, you know, as
10-hour
rides go.
Bumpy. Yeah, exactly. Not like they bump around in the ocean. You can see from that live shot from Manchester, the sun kind of glistening off the water there.
I noticed there, yeah.
Indication of what's to come today. We have yet another beautiful summer day. It's going to be warm, though, once again. Let's take a look.
You're watching King 5 Morning News with all the latest news, first alert weather, and sports. Number 1 in the morning with coverage you can count on. King 5 Morning News.
There it is. That is the taxi that will take Springer back north to Canada. That is the boat Catalina Jet, high-speed catamaran fitted with a special holding tank that Springer will be put into, heading south through Puget Sound, heading for Manchester on the Kitsap Peninsula, and a rendezvous to pick up Springer, running a little bit behind schedule if we understand exactly what they've laid out, the kind of timeline that they've laid out today. Great shot there from Sky King.
It really is.
Beautiful deal. Let's see if we get a shot of that. Can't really see the... Oh, that's up on the upper deck, that blue thing right in the middle of the upper deck there. That, we understand, is the 18-foot tank that Springer will be placed in some sort of a very loose restraint. And you can see the height, Julie, that they're going to have to lift that whale up. This is going to be, it looks like a 20 or 25 feet in the air to get it up over the lip, get her up over the lip of that tank.
That's right. They'll take the net at the bottom of the pen and lift Springer that way, and then put Springer into that sling, lifting her, as you pointed out, quite high up on this catamaran into that tank. Once in the tank, Springer will have fresh seawater put in there the whole way as she goes to this 10 to 12 hour journey up to Canada this morning near Hansen Island to Dong Chong Bay, where hopefully she'll be able to reunite with the A-pod. They're hoping that her grandmother and some of her aunts will recognize her and welcome her back, just beginning this morning.
Catalina Jet from Nichols Brothers Boats on Holmes Harbor up in Whidbey Island. It is 5:23 right now. We got a lot to do this morning. I'm Alan Shofflin.
And I'm Julie Francavilla. Joyce is off. We'll have complete coverage this morning as Springer is moved onto that boat for her trip home.
Well, the day is here. Our visitor down around Fauntleroy and Vashon Island is heading out. Springer, the orphaned orca, going north, going home.
Yeah, something that's never been done before. In just about 15 minutes, the boat that will take her back to Canada that you saw is expected to arrive there in Manchester, where Springer has been a guest for the last month since she was moved from around Vashon. King 5's Pat McReynolds is live in Manchester. Pat, you just saw the boat is on its way.
Yeah, and we may have to readjust our times for the boat a little bit. It's funny, the guest that I'm going to bring in here in just a second was watching the video of the boat going, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, because he's excited about this, as is everyone else here. We've got Clint Wright with the Vancouver Aquarium. Clint, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Oh, you're welcome.
Now, you are the transport coordinator for the aquarium today. How are things going so far?
Well, things right now are going well in terms of Springer. She looks ready to go. She's lively down that first light there. She was doing a few jumps, so she looks ready to go. And I'm hearing that the boat may be a little slower than not moving along quite as quickly as I'd hoped. So hopefully that's not anything too major. But obviously those are the things we're looking for, and hopefully the boat will be coming in fairly soon, and then we can start moving everything into position.
Which is going to move pretty quickly, as a matter of fact. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and show some of the equipment that we've got behind us here. In fact, the crane that we're looking at is what you're actually going to use to lift her up into the boat, and it's a pretty big lift that we're talking about here.
Yeah, we're looking at least a 60-foot lift, I think. So it's going to be a very big lift, but once she's in the stretches, you won't see a whole lot. So for her, whether it's a 10-foot lift or a 60-foot lift, it really doesn't matter. Unless she's very secure, we won't lift her. So once she's very secure, we'll lift her right up, right into the box. So as I say, a 10-foot lift, 60-foot lift, not much difference really in terms of, other than that you've got to get a really big crane.
That's for sure. Now, we're going to show a little bit about the pen that she's headed to, but we're still talking about the transport a little bit. What is your biggest concern for Springer on this 10-hour journey?
Really, it should be fairly straightforward. We'll just keep the temperature correct in the box, so we'll pump water through, salt water, right through the box. We'll keep the temperature right. We've got ice along just in case it starts getting a bit warm. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful day, so there'll be shade cloth up to make sure she doesn't get sunburn. And really, it's we've got great veterinarians on board. We've got a great husbandry team on board, so I'm really confident there shouldn't be too many problems on the health side.
A lot of this has never been done before. Are you worried at all, or is it somewhat exciting that you're doing groundbreaking work here?
Well, really, I've just been moving so fast and everybody's been working so hard, you haven't had a chance to think about where there's any worries. But
Clint, I'm going to break you just for a second because I understand that we've got some activity on the boat itself, so let's go ahead and pitch it back to the studio.
That's right. That boat is now headed to Shilshole Marina in Ballard because apparently there's some sort of problem. They have divers in the water there. If we can get the Sky King shot and show you, they are going to put the divers in the water to check out what's wrong with the boat. Apparently it's slowing down and there's some sort of problem with it. Again, this Catalina Jet donated for this journey by Matt Nichols of Nichols Brothers Boats of Whidbey Island. There is a transport container, as we said, and you were just hearing, on the boat. They plan to lift Springer up, put Springer into that, and keep putting the fresh water in. But as we said, this new development is that there's something wrong with the boat at this point. They don't know why it's going so slow, so they're taking it to Shoal and Ballard to check things out.
And this obviously going to be a disruption with the schedule that we laid out earlier. This boat, ideal for the job because it's able to travel at 35, 40 miles an hour and can lessen the length of that 300-mile or so journey up to the northern tip of Vancouver Island. They obviously don't want this whale in this tank any longer than they have to have it there, so they want Springer's trip to be as quick as possible, and if this ship can't travel as fast as it's designed to travel, obviously that must be a concern. So we now hear they're going to put into Shoal Marina, put people in the water, see if they can figure out if there's something wrong with the hull or whatever, and why it isn't able to travel as fast as it's designed to travel. That is the Catalina jet, the first problem to be solved, and what will probably be many logistical problems to be solved in this very complicated and very long day.
Yeah, as we've been saying, this is all new territory, so they're sort of inventing everything as they go along.
Inventing the whole concept.
Right.
We're just reading a Canadian fisheries press release saying this is virtually there is no precedence for a successful reintroduction of a solitary whale to its pod. So not only are they trying these physical and technological things as an experiment, but they're basically trying a sort of social experiment, if you will. It's just never been done.
Yeah, absolutely. They're
Never
just
been done
playing
successfully anyway.
Completely playing it by ear. You know, there's the getting Springer there, and then there's just the hope that she'll be able to be reintroduced successfully. Again, you're looking at a live picture in Manchester where Springer is awaiting what she doesn't even know is probably, hopefully, one of the biggest days of her life.
And she's going to be awaiting for a while longer. If today's move is a success, if in fact we have a move today at this point, Canadian officials are saying they might consider doing the same for another displaced orca.
To our boat is a killer whale.
This amazing home video was taken by some Bellingham fishermen. It shows their encounter with L98, more romantically nicknamed Luna. He too is separated from his pod. He's sort of a local. He should be in U.S. waters, a member of L Pod, but he's now living on the west side of Vancouver Island by himself in Nootka Sound.
We just watched the video and it still gives me chills to watch the video. I mean, it's hard to believe we actually did it, and it's hard to look at us and say, well, that's us touching a wild killer whale.
The Canadian government is taking a hands-off approach on this whale for now. L98 appears healthy, and there is some hope that his own pod will come by and pick him up a little later this fall. Here we are in the continuing saga of the attempt to move Springer back home. You're looking at a big U-turn that has been made by the Catalina jet. That is the high-speed catamaran that was set to take Springer back north into Canada, back to her home pod. And apparently the boat is heading back to Holmes Harbor, heading back to home base on Whidbey Island with some sort of problem.
That's right. This Catalina jet was donated by Matt Nichols of Whidbey Island for this 300-mile journey to give Springer a really smooth ride as she headed back to Canada. But this morning, just as things started off, already a problem with the boat. They don't know what it is, so apparently they're taking it back to check things out. 5:45 this morning was actually when they were hoping to get Springer put in that boat in Manchester. So things are pushed back considerably already this morning.
That's right, a very, very complex job that they're doing here, and the first big problem that they're going to have to solve, obviously. We will get you more information as we can about what exactly is going on with this boat, what this might mean for the move or the non-move today, see if it's completely scuttled. Anyway, we'll get that information, get back to you just as soon as we can with that.
Yeah, 10 to 12-hour journey. They don't want to make it any longer or any more difficult on Springer.
Yeah.
Definitely. 5:54, welcome back everyone. A holdup this morning in moving Springer back to Canada. The boat, the catamaran that was supposed to move Springer from the get-go is now having some problems.
Yeah, that's trouble. Let's check in with Pat McReynolds. He's at the holding pen in Manchester. And Pat, what are folks there hearing about what's going on with the boat?
Well, organizers are now talking about the possibility of making this transport in the dark. In fact, Clint Wright with the Vancouver Aquarium just got off the phone. I understand, was it the boat that you were communicating with?
That's right, yeah. So I was talking with the boat and asking them what they thought the problem was. It's a highly technical boat. Obviously, it's the Catalina jet is a very fast boat. So there's a number of things that could possibly be wrong. They think they know what it is, so they're taking it to the dock. They think they can sort it out. But obviously, we've got a time window here. I was asking them how comfortable they are running in the dark because it is a high-speed vessel. They're not. So that pretty much gives us the window. We can work back. I would say if we're, and I need to check with some other folks, but I would think 10:30, 11 if we're not out of here by then, because they're looking at now 8.5 hour ride up there. So the time's come down, so that's good if they can get up to speed.
Now, but if they can get up to speed, of course, is the question. You're thinking, though, that it might just be crud on the bottom, barnacles and things of that nature that are slowing the boat down?
Yeah, that was a guess I had at the beginning. They obviously are out there and they may have more idea of what they think it might be, so they're going to check it out over there, and they'll get back to me as soon as they know the problem.
In your opinion, do you think that this is going to happen today?
Well, I always got my fingers crossed, but it's always good to have contingencies. I mean, if it doesn't work out, obviously the health and safety of Springer and the people on board is the #1 priority. So if it doesn't work out today, then I guess we're looking at tomorrow.
And I guess you don't lose anything by doing it tomorrow, other than just another day of worry and sleep.
Well, that's right. Well, I guess if it's another day of worry, that's just what I need. So
Yeah.
I think we just have to play it by ear. I mean, these things happen if you go by plane. You get plane delays and things like that. If the ferry breaks down, you just stall in the water. If you go by plane and something happens, you hit the ground. It's not so good. So it's a very safe transport, and there's obviously a logistical problem with a little bit with the boat. So we'll see if we can get that sorted out. And it sounds like it shouldn't be too big a deal. So even if we don't get it done today, it should be ready for tomorrow.
Now, we were showing pictures of the boat actually turning around in the water a few seconds ago. Is it actually headed back to Whidbey Island, or where is it headed right now?
I heard that it sounded like they were heading back to Whidbey.
To Whidbey?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're still hoping, though, that it will be able to happen today, but you say about 10:30 you need to be headed out of Manchester. If that doesn't happen, we're pushing it, huh?
I'm thinking 10:30, 11 latest, I would think. Because even though it's 8.5 hours and it's probably light up there till 10, you don't want to leave it so late in case you have a slight problem on the way.
Okay, Clint Wright, thank you very much. So there you heard it. It may happen today, it may not, but we will definitely keep you up to date as soon as Clint hears back from the boat. Reporting live from Manchester, Pat McReynolds, King 5 News.
All right, thanks very much.
#1 in Western Washington, with coverage you can count on. Broadcasting in HD TV from Digital Studio A. King 5 Morning News.
This morning, there was a logistical problem with this boat that was hoping to move Springer back to Canada. Apparently, there's some sort of problem with the boat. This logistical problem is making the boat go back to Whidbey Island, where they're going to try to figure out what the problem is. At about 10:30 or 11 this morning, if they don't get that figured out, they might have to bump this transport to tomorrow. We'll have the latest information coming up. Good morning, everybody. I'm Julie Francavilla. Joyce is off today.
I'm Alan Schaffler. Thanks for joining us. We will have complete coverage this morning if Springer is moved onto a boat for her trip home north into Canadian waters. Also, another very hot day ahead for Western Washington. Now to Springer, and again, we had hoped by now that we'd have a boat in place and they would beginning to hoist the whale, or prepare to hoist the whale into the boat and take off north. That is apparently not going to happen, at least not on the timeline that they had planned and been planning for this morning. We got a problem with the boat. It's headed back to port. See if they can solve that.
That's right. Hopefully they'll be able to figure things out by about 10:30 or 11 this morning so that this can happen today. Pat McReynolds joins us live with the latest information from Manchester. Pat.
Yeah, Julie, the window is actually even a little tighter than that. It has to be leaving Manchester by 10:30 or 11, or else this whole thing gets scrapped and it gets pushed to tomorrow. Pretty disappointing news. Obviously, everybody here was very excited, and the planning had been going on for several weeks for this transport. In fact, we were just talking to Clint Wright with Vancouver Aquarium, who was telling us that, they worried all night about today, and now they're going to have another night of worry for tomorrow. But then again, they don't lose much by having to push it back. Springer is healthy, as we talked about it before. She's gained weight, and she's eating healthily here in Manchester. So it just makes everyone have to push it back another day, but they shouldn't lose too much by that. We're hoping, of course, as you were looking at the pictures there of the boat, they were thinking that it was barnacles or something else that has grown on the bottom of the boat that is slowing it down. They're going to get divers in the water to take a look at the hull of the ship and try to figure out exactly what it is. He's confident, Clint Wright is confident, that they'll be able to figure it out and still get that high speed, although it's not very high speed right now, catamaran down here to Manchester, and hopefully still get Springer home by later on tonight.
Okay, again, this catamaran donated by Whidbey Island's Matt Nichols of Nichols Brothers Boats, specifically for this ride, set up specifically for Springer, right, Pat?
And
right there on, oh, I'm sorry, Alan, go ahead.
Go ahead, no, it's on you.
Well, you can see with the ship right there, it's about a 60-foot crane hoist to get Springer up to the special tank where she's going to be, and that tank is resting on hydraulics. So once Springer gets on the catamaran, it will be a very smooth ride, and we heard a few moments ago we were anticipating her transport to be about 12 to 10 hours, but now that number has actually been reduced to about 8.5 hours to get up to Vancouver Island. So once the boat gets here, it should be a pretty smooth ride. We're just hoping that that'll actually happen today.
Be nice if it happened this morning. A lot of people waiting it. Thank you very much, Pat. Appreciate that. By the way, I just checked the Nichols Brothers website, and if you want that boat, you can have it if you write a check for about $8.2 million. 8.2 gets you the Catalina jet.
Yeah, I think it was repossessed from Catalina Island by those Whidbey Island boat builders. And Matt Nichols' grandchildren talked him into using this for Springer. He had no plans of donating it for this, but they talked Grandpa into donating it. And again, they're thinking it might be barnacles or something on the bottom that's slowing the boat down, but they're taking it back to Whidbey Island so they can figure that out right now.
We want to interrupt that story very quickly. They're having a press conference in Manchester about the Springer move. Let's go there, check in with Pat McReynolds, or check with exactly what's happening there. Clint Wright with the Canadian Fisheries, or with the Vancouver Aquarium, we believe.
Yeah, that's right, Alan. He's ready to go, and so let's go ahead and find out what Clint has to say. Clint, go right ahead.
The Catalina jet has turned back to Whidbey Island. There seems to be a bit of a problem in terms of it getting up to full speed, and we do need it at full speed to be able to get up to Vancouver Island in the time window that we have. We can't travel at night, so it's very important that it's going at its at close to its maximum speed most of the way. So what we're doing is taking it back, checking out. They think they may know what the problem is. They're going to send some divers in and have a look at the hull, and that's about all I know in terms of what's actually wrong with it. But they seem to be fairly confident that they can fix the problem. It just depends how long that's going to take.
Clint, I know you had mentioned before about a certain cutoff time for this whole situation. If there's a certain point in the day that we reach, we might not make this today.
That's right. I mean, it's probably a little too early to speculate exactly what that time will be, but certainly, you know, if we're getting close to midday, that's going to be it, because it's, and then we're really looking at tomorrow, because it's that would obviously be the next earliest time that we could go. But there's obviously a lot of people to talk to, a lot of logistics still to go through, and Springer's doing well. She's in the net pen. She looks ready to go, and she's fit and healthy, so nothing's changed there. And obviously, we're not going to do anything to jeopardize the health of Springer or the crew that are working with her. So, you know, we'll take the time that it takes to do it properly and make sure that it's safe.
Will the day make a difference with her meeting her pod, if possible?
I don't really think so. There's animals up there right now. They certainly come through the regular intervals. They come in for a few days and then take off and then come back again maybe a week, 2 weeks later. There's no schedule on those animals coming in. We really don't know. We know that they're around at this time of the year. We're starting to see whales up there, which is a great sign. They're starting to turn up in the last week or so. A couple of weeks they've been showing up, and in fact one of our closely related pods showed up yesterday, the A11. So we're pretty hopeful that they're going to be around for quite a while. So you know, a day or two here or there isn't going to make a big difference.
Clint, how disappointed are you that this didn't go as planned this morning?
Well, obviously you hope that everything's going to go as well as it can, but obviously we have contingencies, we have plans, backup plans. You're obviously hoping that you can do it when you say you're going to do it, but because you have got contingencies, you always expect the worst, you plan for the worst, and then if it happens, there isn't a shock. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody's calm. We can work our way through it, and so I think the key thing is that everybody's on the same page. Everybody down here has been great. Folks at National Marine Fisheries Service, we've got people from DFO, we've got Jeff Foster's team, we've got people from the aquarium. Everybody's very patient, everybody understands the process, and at the end of the day, it's going to be a successful move.
When you say the cutoff deadline?
I couldn't tell you exactly that time right now.
The cutoff deadline, you were saying, can you describe the, you know, from the time the boat has to leave Whidbey Island, and then, because it needs some time here to get the whale ready?
Yeah, and I need to discuss that with the rest of the team, because that would depend on the rest of the team and how quickly we can do that. So it's going to be probably an hour or so to get from Whidbey Island over here. So, you know, then we have to work out and get the boat settled, get the crane settled, get it safely out the net, loaded. And so I'll be going away now and working out those logistics.
So that was Clint Wright with the Vancouver Aquarium telling us that it may still happen today, it may not. We're still waiting, although it looks like the cutoff time is going to be at 11 o'clock for the boat to actually leave Manchester. If that doesn't happen, it pushes to tomorrow, potentially to next week. Reporting live in Manchester, Pat McReynolds, King 5 News.
Thanks very much, Pat. Pretty amazing mix of organizations and agencies running this whole thing, too. The Canadian Department of Fisheries and Oceans actually officially in charge, and the folks in the Vancouver Aquarium, Clint Wright and crew sort of running operations on the ground and on the
Yeah,
water.
A lot of
Or
synergy
not.
going on.
Yeah.
That's right. And, you know, meantime, Springer sits there in Manchester not knowing that any of this is going on and that all this fuss is happening over Springer, who's they hope to move back to Canada to, again, hook up with the A-pod up there in Manchester.
Crossing their flippers and hoping for the best.
First for local news, Dan Lewis, Kathy Gertzen, Steve Poole, and Eric Johnson. KOMO 4 News continues.
Springer, the orphaned Orca, is sticking around for at least one more night here in Puget Sound. Welcome back to KOMO 4 News. I'm Keith Eldridge. Dan has the night off.
And I'm Kathy Gertzen. First for local news at 5:30 tonight. Some boat problems delayed Springer's trip home to Canadian waters. We have live Team 4 coverage from both sides of the border tonight, beginning with KOMO's Tracy Vetter live up in Air 4 over Manchester. Tracy?
Well, Springer's rescuers are not leaving anything for chance tomorrow. We're taking you some live pictures from Air 4 of the Manchester dock here. That is the catamaran, the Catalina jet. You can see it's already here, fueled up, ready to load Springer on board at first light and to head home. Now this morning, instead of a brisk 45 miles per hour, the high-speed Catalina jet limped back into Whidbey Island at about half speed. Divers checked out the boat's hull and discovered that a subcontractor had done a poor job of cleaning the hull. That's a chewed-up buoy that they found wrapped around a jet intake. Heavy barnacles inside those same engine ports. By the time the problem was fixed, it was too late to start what could be a 12-hour voyage.
This vessel has to have absolute perfect water flow to those 4 water jets, and it just missed. But we've got it fixed. It's running great. Everything just purring.
The whale doesn't know any different. She's just been swimming around her pen eating her normal rations. And so for the crew, in some ways, it was a bit of a shakedown cruise. And we'll retool and go tomorrow, starting a little earlier, probably about 5 a.m.
Back with you live now. You can see Springer there in her pen. She continues to be active and healthy, eating plenty of fish and adding a little extra weight. With the Catalina jet already here, the rescuers hope to get an early start in the morning and have Springer on board and on her way back home by 6 a.m. Reporting live in Air 4 over Manchester, I'm Tracy Vetter. Back to you, Kathy.
All right, thanks very much, Tracy.